Look, I'm not saying I planned my husband's career suicide at our 15th wedding anniversary dinner, but when he stood up at the Capitol Grill and announced his affair with the paralegal, I was already holding 61% of his law firm in my Hermes clutch. My name's Celeste Mercer, and I'm a corporate acquisitions attorney who spent 6 months buying out the retiring partners of Caldwell and Associates, while my husband Orlando, senior partner and recent midlife crisis cliché, was spending firm money on his 28-year-old side piece. The kicker? I handle their corporate acquisitions. So basically, Orlando's been raw-dogging both his career and his marriage while I've been quietly becoming his boss. The Thursday night he decided to blow up our marriage, we were surrounded by both families, our 20-year-old twins Marin and Brooks home from UGA, and half the partners from his firm. 75 people watching him stand up, tap his wine glass like he's about to give a heartfelt toast, and instead deliver, "I'm in love with someone else. I want a divorce. You can keep the house, Celeste." The audacity. The absolute audacity of a man who thought 20 pounds of Botox and a leased Porsche Cayenne made him interesting. Here's what Orlando didn't know that Thursday night. I'd already hired the forensic accountant. I'd already discovered his creative reallocation of firm funds. I'd already lined up the votes for his removal. And I'd already thanked him, out loud with a warm smile that made his face go from smug to confused in 0.5 seconds. "Thank you for your honesty, darling," I'd said, raising my wine glass. That must have taken courage. The confusion in his eyes? Chef's kiss. Because Friday morning, Orlando walked into what he thought was a routine partners meeting and found me sitting at the head of the table with our accountant, our new HR director, and a 40-page forensic audit detailing exactly where $340,000 of firm money had gone over the past 2 years. Spoiler alert, it went to Bryn's Buckhead apartment, a BMW lease, and approximately 67 stays at the W Hotel that he'd expensed as client development. Let me back up before I get ahead of myself, because this is a masterclass in strategic patience, and it started way before that Thursday night at the Capitol Grill. I met Orlando Caldwell 20 years ago when I was a hungry first-year associate at a corporate firm in Midtown, and he was the charismatic third year who wore Armani suits his salary couldn't afford and talked about starting his own practice, once the time was right. We got married fast, too fast probably, and I got pregnant with the twins on our honeymoon in Napa. Romantic, right? Except I spent my entire pregnancy working from home while finishing my bar certification, and Orlando spent it networking at every golf course in the greater Atlanta metropolitan area. But here's the thing about Orlando. He's brilliant at bringing in clients and terrible at literally everything else. The firm's success? That was me. I built the corporate acquisitions department from nothing. I brought in the tech startups, the healthcare consolidations, the real estate development deals that kept Caldwell and Associates in the black. Orlando brought in the country club schmoozes who wanted someone to play 18 holes with them before signing retainer agreements. For 15 years, I was fine with that arrangement. I didn't need the spotlight. I had my work, my kids, my book club with Thea and the other suburban moms who day drank rosé and pretended we weren't all one husband scandal away from a nervous breakdown. Then, about 2.5 years ago, Orlando started coming home late, started working weekends at the office, started going to legal conferences in cities that definitely weren't hosting legal conferences. And look, I'm not stupid. I'm a lawyer who specializes in due diligence. I can spot a shell company from 50 yards. You think I couldn't spot my husband's affair? I spotted it. I just decided to get strategic about it. The thing about being underestimated is that it gives you room to maneuver. Orlando's always thought of me as the supportive wife, who handles the boring corporate paperwork while he does the real lawyering in court. Never mind that my billable hours were triple his. Never mind that I was invited to speak at the ABA conference while he was still trying to get Bar Journal editors to return his calls. So when I started noticing the signs, the new cologne, the suspiciously thorough personal grooming, the way he'd angle his phone away from me, I didn't confront him. I did what any good corporate attorney would do. I started building a case. First, I hired a private investigator. Not some TV drama trenchcoat situation, but a former FBI agent named Vera who charged $400 an hour and got me photos of Orlando and Bryn at restaurants, hotels, and one particularly memorable afternoon at SunTrust Park, where they were definitely not watching the Braves game. Second, I called my best friend Thea, a financial advisor who knows more about money laundering than most federal prosecutors, and asked her if she'd noticed anything interesting about the firm's expenditures. Thea, bless her, had been waiting for this conversation. She showed up at my house with a bottle of Veuve Clicquot and a spreadsheet that would make the IRS weep with joy. "Girl," she'd said, spreading the papers across my kitchen island. "Your husband's been using the firm credit card like it's monopoly money. Either he's the dumbest lawyer in Georgia, or he thinks you're too stupid to notice." Third, I reached out to 3 retiring partners at Caldwell & Associates. Nice older guys who'd been quietly trying to cash out their equity for years, but couldn't find buyers because Orlando kept forgetting to facilitate the transactions. Funny how motivated sellers become when you offer them 10% above market value and promise a smooth, confidential closing. The whole operation took 6 months. 6 months of smiling at Orlando over breakfast. 6 months of asking about his day and pretending I believed his bullshit about late client calls. 6 months of watching him preen and posture while I quietly bought his kingdom out from under him. So back to that Thursday night at the Capitol Grill. Orlando had insisted on this big anniversary dinner. 15 years, Celeste. We need to celebrate properly. He'd invited everyone. His parents, my parents, the twins, his managing partners Hugh and Lawson, their wives, even his paralegal Bryn, which, in retrospect, wow. We'd been seated at this long table in the private dining room, and I'd watched Orlando get progressively drunker on overpriced scotch while telling war stories about cases he hadn't actually won. Marin kept shooting me these "dad's being embarrassing again" looks across the table. Brooks was on his phone, probably texting his girlfriend. My mother was discussing her recent kitchen renovation with Orlando's mother, blissfully unaware of the impending detonation. Around 9 p.m., Orlando stood up, tapped his glass. The room went quiet. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he started. And I thought maybe he was actually going to give a normal speech. "Celeste and I have been married for 15 years, and it's been quite a journey. Here we go," I thought. "But I need to be honest with everyone here," he continued. And I saw his managing partner Hugh's face go pale. Hugh knew. Hugh definitely knew what was coming. "I've fallen in love with someone else. I want a divorce." You could have heard a pin drop. My mother's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Marin's jaw literally dropped. Brooks looked up from his phone with an expression of, "Did Dad just—" Orlando was looking at me, waiting for tears or screaming or some kind of dramatic breakdown that would justify his narrative of the suffocating marriage he needed to escape. Instead, I smiled. Warmly. Genuinely. "Thank you for your honesty, darling," I said, raising my wine glass in a toast. "That must have taken courage. I appreciate you being upfront about it." The confusion on his face was delicious. This wasn't the script he'd prepared for. I was supposed to make a scene. I was supposed to embarrass myself while he played the conflicted but brave husband who'd found true love. You're not upset?" he stammered. "Upset?" I took a sip of my Pinot Noir. "Orlando, if you're unhappy, then you should absolutely pursue your happiness. I want you to be happy." I could see Thea 3 seats down trying not to laugh into her napkin. The twins looked bewildered. Orlando's parents looked mortified. "Well," Orlando said, clearly thrown. "Good, that's good. You can keep the house, obviously." "That's very generous," I said, "though we should probably discuss the details tomorrow. You have that partners meeting at 9, right?" His face lit up. He thought I was going to make this easy. "Right, yes, the meeting. We'll talk after that." "Perfect," I said and raised my glass higher. "To new beginnings." Everyone awkwardly clinked glasses, and the dinner dissolved into the most uncomfortable coffee and dessert service in Capitol Grill history. That night, after Orlando had packed a bag and left for God knows where, spoiler, Bryn's apartment, I sat in my kitchen with Thea and a bottle of wine. "You're a savage," Thea said, admiring. "An absolute savage." Tomorrow's going to be interesting, I said. Tomorrow's going to be legendary, she corrected. She had no idea. Because Friday morning at 8:45 a.m., I walked into Caldwell and Associates with my new majority ownership papers, my forensic audit, and my lawyer face, the one that makes opposing counsel settle before discovery. Orlando was already in the conference room, drinking coffee and laughing with Hugh about something. He saw me walk in and his face went confused again. Celeste, what are you doing here? I sat down at the head of the table, his usual seat. Taking a seat at my own firm, I said, and watched the color drain from his face. The other partners filed in, our accountant, our new HR director, my attorney. And then I dropped the audit on the table. Gentlemen, I said, we need to discuss some irregularities in partner disbursements. Orlando's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. Game on. The thing about watching a man's entire world collapse is that it happens in stages. Like watching a building demolition in slow motion. First the support beams buckle, then the walls crack, then everything just crumbles. Orlando's demolition started the moment I slid that forensic audit across the conference table. What is this? He asked, but his voice had that tight quality that meant he already knew exactly what it was. That, I said, keeping my tone pleasant and professional, the same tone I use when I'm about to eviscerate opposing counsel in a deposition, is a comprehensive audit of partner distributions and firm expenditures over the past 24 months. Fascinating reading, really. I'd recommend starting with page 17. That's where the W hotel charges get really creative. Hugh picked up the report. His face went from confused to horrified in about 30 seconds. Lawson was reading over his shoulder, and I watched his expression mirror Hugh's. Orlando's face, though. Orlando's face was doing this interesting thing where it was trying to decide between indignant denial and pure panic. It settled somewhere around angry, trapped animal. You had no right to— Actually, I interrupted, pulling out another document. I had every right. As the majority shareholder of Caldwell and Associates, I have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure firm assets aren't being misappropriated. And Orlando, sweetheart, you've been misappropriating the hell out of firm assets. Majority shareholder? Lawson looked up from the audit. What are you talking about? I slid the ownership documents across the table. Watching 3 successful attorneys realize they'd been completely blindsided was almost as satisfying as the revenge itself. Almost. Over the past 6 months, I've acquired the equity stakes of partners Whitmore, Jackson, and Sullivan, all of whom were very motivated to sell after their buyout requests kept getting mysteriously delayed. I looked pointedly at Orlando. I now own 61% of this firm, which means I have controlling interest, which means, and Orlando, you're going to want to pay attention to this part, I can call for a vote to remove any partner for cause. The silence in that conference room was chef's kiss material. This is insane, Orlando finally managed. You can't just— You're my wife! Was, I corrected. Past tense. You filed for divorce last night at the Capitol Grill, remember? In front of 75 witnesses, including your managing partners and both our families. Very memorable, by the way. My mother's still processing it. Hugh was speed reading through the audit now, his face getting progressively more pale. Orlando, please tell me you didn't actually expense Bryn's apartment on the firm card. Or her car lease, Lawson added, flipping pages. Or her— Wait, is this a Tiffany's charge for $8,000? It was her birthday, Orlando said weakly. Which you celebrated on firm time, I said. During billable hours you charged to the Mercer Industries acquisition, which, fun fact, is my client. So you were literally charging my client for the hours you spent buying jewelry for your mistress. That's what we call adding insult to injury. Our new HR director, a formidable woman named Gwen who I'd poached from King and Spalding specifically for this moment, cleared her throat. Mr. Caldwell, I need to inform you that misappropriation of firm funds constitutes grounds for immediate termination under Partnership Agreement Section 7.3. Additionally, the State Bar of Georgia takes a very dim view of attorneys who commingle personal and professional finances. Orlando's face had gone from red to white to a kind of grayish green that reminded me of old guacamole. You're threatening my license? I'm not threatening anything, I said. I'm simply pointing out that $340,000 in unauthorized personal expenditures charged to firm accounts is the kind of thing that gets reported to the bar's Office of General Counsel. Whether that report gets filed depends entirely on how cooperative you are in the next 5 minutes. You know what's funny? All those years Orlando spent treating me like the corporate paperwork monkey while he played big important litigator. All those partner dinners where he'd introduce me as, my wife Celeste. She handles the boring stuff. All those times he'd interrupt me mid-sentence to explain something about law to me. To me, a woman who graduated second in her class from Emory Law. This right here, watching him realize I'd been 13 steps ahead of him for 6 months. This was every single one of those microaggressions getting their karma delivered, express shipping. What do you want? Orlando asked. And there it was, the defeat in his voice. Oh, Orlando. I leaned back in my chair. I want you to resign from the partnership effective immediately. I want you to sign over your equity stake for fair market value minus the $340,000 you embezzled. Sorry, misappropriated. I want a clean divorce with me keeping the house, the vacation condo in Hilton Head, and 70% of our liquid assets. And I want you to tell Bryn that her paralegal position has been eliminated due to budget restructuring. You can't fire her because I can fire her because she falsified her timesheets to match your fraudulent billing, Gwen interrupted. Page 23 of the audit. She's been clocking billable hours while you two were at the W Hotel. That's grounds for immediate termination with cause. Hugh and Lawson were exchanging glances. I could see them doing the mental math. If they backed Orlando, they'd be complicit in the fraud. If they backed me, they kept their licenses and their livelihoods. I moved to accept Orlando Caldwell's resignation and remove him as managing partner, Hugh said. Seconded, Lawson added immediately. Orlando looked between them like they'd just stabbed him in the back. Are you serious right now? I built this firm. Actually, I said, pulling out another folder, because I'm nothing if not thorough. I have the billing records for the past 10 years. Would you like to guess whose billable hours account for 68% of firm revenue? Hint. It's not the guy who spent every Thursday afternoon at the country club calling it business development. Lawson was reading my billing records now. Jesus, Celeste. These numbers are substantial, I finished. Yes, I'm aware. I've been carrying this firm since 2015. I just let Orlando think he was in charge because it was easier than arguing about it every Tuesday. You've been planning this, Orlando said, and there was something almost like respect in his voice. Almost. Mostly, it was horror. Planning implies I wanted this, I said. Orlando, I would have been perfectly happy continuing our arrangement indefinitely. You had your country club, I had my work, we had our kids, but you decided to blow it all up at the Capitol Grill in front of everyone we know. So yes, I had a contingency plan. I'm a corporate attorney. I have contingency plans for my contingency plans. Gwen slid a resignation agreement across the table to Orlando. This needs to be signed by end of business today. We've already prepared your exit package. Exit package? Orlando looked at the numbers and went even paler. This is half what my equity is worth. That's what happens when you embezzle $333,000, I said cheerfully. The math gets complicated. Oh, and you'll need to clear out your office by 5 p.m. We're converting it into a library. Something useful. Orlando signed the papers. He didn't have a choice. It was either sign or face bar complaints, civil suits, and probably criminal charges. Sometimes you don't get to pick your battles. Sometimes the battle picks you, and you're already on the ground before you realize you're fighting. As he stood to leave, he looked at me with something that might have been genuine emotion. I loved you, you know. Once. I know, I said. But you loved yourself more. And Orlando? That apartment you got Bryn in Buckhead? The lease is in the firm's name. She's got until Monday to vacate. He left without another word. Hugh stayed behind after everyone else filed out. Celeste, I need to say, we had no idea he was doing this. I know you didn't, Hugh. That's why you still have a job. What happens now? I smiled. Now we call Griffin Tate and make him partner. We restructure the corporate division. We triple our revenue in 18 months. And we make Caldwell and Associates the most successful firm in Atlanta. Without Orlando. Hugh said. Because of his absence, I corrected. Trust me, this is an upgrade. I left the office around 11. I had lunch plans with Thea at the new tapas place in Buckhead, and I'd promised the twins I'd call them to explain what the hell had happened last night. But first, I sat in my car in the parking garage and took a moment to appreciate the absolute poetry of what had just happened. My phone buzzed. Text from Marin. Mom, did you just fire Dad? Brooks and I are living for this drama. I laughed, typed back. Not fired. He resigned. There's a difference. Marin. Savage queen behavior. We're proud of you. Yeah, me too. The lunch with Thea at Eclipse de Luna was supposed to be celebratory, but I spent the first 15 minutes just staring at my sangria while she demolished a plate of patatas bravas. You're processing, she said finally. I can see the wheels turning. I just ended my husband's career, I said, in front of his partners, using a forensic audit I secretly commissioned while pretending everything was fine over breakfast for 6 months. Correction! You ended your ex-husband's career after he publicly humiliated you at your anniversary dinner and embezzled from the firm you basically built. Thea pointed a fork at me. There's a difference. Is there? Celeste. Babe. He bought his mistress a BMW with company money. He expensed their sex hotel on client bills. He was going to leave you with nothing while he rode off into the sunset with paralegal Barbie and your life's work. She paused. Actually, I need you to tell me again about his face when you showed him the ownership papers. That's my new happy place. I couldn't help laughing. It was pretty spectacular. Damn right it was. Thea raised her glass. To strategic patience and forensic accounting. We clinked glasses, and I felt something loosen in my chest. Maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't the villain here. Maybe I was just someone who'd been pushed too far and had the resources to push back. My phone buzzed. Text from Griffin Tate, the attorney I'd been courting to join the firm for the past 3 months. Heard interesting news. Hugh called. Should we talk? I showed Thea the text. Griffin's heard. Good. He's exactly what the firm needs. Smart, hungry, doesn't have Orlando's ego problem. She paused. Also, not to be shallow, but have you seen him? Because, Thea, I'm just saying, post-divorce glow-up potential is real. I typed back to Griffin. Lunch Monday? We should discuss partnership structure. His response came immediately. Already planning my acceptance speech. The thing about Griffin was that he reminded me of myself 10 years ago. Sharp, ambitious, willing to do the unglamorous work that actually made money. He'd been at Alston & Bird doing corporate compliance, slowly dying of boredom while bringing in clients nobody else wanted. I'd offered him senior partner track and his own team. He'd been circling for months, waiting to see if I was serious. Now he'd get to see exactly how serious I was. My phone rang. Brooks calling. Mom, Marin and I are coming home this weekend. We need details. Real details, not the sanitized version. There's not much to tell that you didn't see last night. Oh, come on. Dad's blowing up our family group chat saying you staged some kind of corporate coup. Grandma's having a meltdown. Marin's already made a TikTok about it. She didn't post it, but she made it. We need the full story. I looked at Thea, who was shamelessly eavesdropping. Your father made some poor financial decisions. I corrected them. That's the story. Mom, I'm a finance major. Marin's studying business law. We're not babies. What did he actually do? So I told him. Not everything. There are some things your kids don't need to know about their father's hotel habits. But enough. The embezzlement. The affair timeline. The fact that I'd been planning my exit strategy since February. Brooks was quiet for a long moment. So you basically bought Dad's company out from under him while he was cheating on you with the paralegal. In simplified terms, yes. That's the most savage thing I've ever heard. Marin. Mom bought Dad's firm. I could hear Marin screaming in the background. They were definitely their mother's children. We're coming home tonight, Brooks said. Screw our Friday classes. This is too good. After I hung up, Thea was grinning. Your kids are incredible. They get it from me, I said, and for the first time in 24 hours, I actually believed it. The weekend was chaos. The twins came home and demanded a complete timeline of events, which I provided while we ordered Thai food and drank wine on the back porch. Well, I drank wine. They drank kombucha because they're 20 and insufferable about gut health. So wait, Marin said, scrolling through her phone. Bryn just deleted all her social media. Like, completely nuked her Instagram. Can't say I'm surprised, I said. Hugh probably called her this afternoon to terminate her employment. She's going to want to disappear for a while. Good, Brooke said. She knew he was married. She knew about us. That's calculating. Yeah, well, calculated plans have a way of backfiring. I took another sip of wine. Trust me on that. Marin was still scrolling. Oh my God, Mom, you're not going to believe this. She turned her phone around. It was a Facebook post from Orlando's mother, my soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law Judith, in the neighborhood HOA group. I want to thank everyone for their concern and support during this difficult time. My son Orlando is going through a challenging transition, but we have faith that truth and integrity will prevail. Some people will do anything for money and revenge, but character always reveals itself in the end. I stared at the post, read it again, then started laughing. She did not just post that in the HOA group, I said. She absolutely did, Marin confirmed. And Mom, the comments are insane. Mrs. Patterson from 3 doors down wrote, maybe Orlando should have thought about character before he had an affair. It's getting spicy. Brooks was reading over her shoulder. Oh, damn. Mr. Morrison wrote, interesting take from someone whose son embezzled from his own firm. How does everyone already know everything? I asked. Because Hugh's wife Caroline is in my mom's Pilates class, and she told everyone this morning, Thea said. She'd come over after dinner and was now curled up in one of the porch chairs with her own wine. The suburban gossip network is faster than CNN. By Monday, everyone in a 10-mile radius will know Orlando got caught with his hand in the cookie jar and his paralegal in the Buckhead apartment. My phone buzzed. Text from Hugh. Judith's Facebook post is not helpful. Trying to do damage control. I'm sorry. I showed it to Thea. Hugh's apologizing for his business partner's mother. Hugh's trying to keep his job, Thea corrected. Which, smart man. He knows which way the wind's blowing. Sunday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Orlando. I didn't call him back. Instead, I went to my lawyer's office, my personal attorney, not anyone from the firm, and spent 3 hours hammering out divorce terms. By Sunday evening, I had a separation agreement drafted that was so airtight it could survive a nuclear blast. Orlando would get his 401k, his car, and a settlement that amounted to about 30% of our liquid assets after adjusting for his embezzlement. I'd keep the house, the Hilton Head condo, my retirement accounts, and primary custody of our kids' college funds. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Petra, who specialized in high-asset divorces, reviewed everything twice. This is solid. He'd be insane not to sign. He doesn't have a choice, I said. If he fights me, I file bar complaints and civil suits. He'll be buried in legal fees before discovery even starts. You've thought this through. I've thought everything through, Petra. That's kind of my thing. Monday morning came faster than I expected. I drove to the office early, before 7, and sat in my car for a few minutes just looking at the building. Caldwell and Associates. Except it wasn't really Caldwell's anymore, was it? I made a mental note to talk to Hugh about rebranding. Maybe Mercer Tate and Associates had a nice ring to it. Griffin was waiting in my office when I got upstairs. He'd brought coffee from the good place downtown, not the break room sludge. Thought you might need this, he said, handing me a latte. You're hired. I assumed. Hugh sent me the partnership papers this weekend. I signed them yesterday. He sat down across from my desk. I also heard through the legal community grapevine that Orlando Caldwell had a very bad Friday. You could say that. Want to tell me what I'm walking into? So I did. The whole story, start to finish. The affair, the embezzlement, the acquisition, the confrontation. Griffin listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and let out a low whistle. You orchestrated a corporate takeover while going through a divorce while maintaining a full caseload. That's actually impressive. It's called multitasking. It's called being terrifying. He grinned. I like it. So what's the plan now? What are we building here? And that was the question, wasn't it? What came next? I pulled out the business plan I'd been working on for the past month. We're going to triple our corporate client base in 18 months. We're going to specialize in tech startups and healthcare acquisitions. We're going to become the go-to firm for mid-market deals in the Southeast. And we're going to do it without the dead weight of partners who think golf counts as billable hours. Griffin was reading through my projections. These numbers are ambitious. These numbers are conservative, I corrected. I've been holding back for 15 years because Orlando couldn't handle me outshining him. I'm done holding back. He looked up at me, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. Respect, maybe? Or recognition. One ambitious person seeing another. Then let's get to work, he said. The thing about revenge, real revenge, not the movie kind, is that it doesn't end with a dramatic confrontation. It continues in 1,000 small moments that remind everyone involved exactly how the power structure shifted. Monday afternoon, I was in my office reviewing the Mercer Industries contract when my assistant knocked. Celeste, there's a Bryn Matthews here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. I looked up from my laptop. Send her in. Bryn walked into my office looking like she'd aged 5 years and 72 hours. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a Georgia State sweatshirt. This was not the polished paralegal who'd been parading around the office in Tory Burch flats and designer blouses that my husband had definitely paid for. Mrs. Caldwell. Ms. Mercer, I corrected. I'm reverting to my maiden name. What can I do for you, Bryn? She stood there, wringing her hands like a character in a Victorian novel. I need my job back. I sat back in my chair and studied her. She couldn't have been more than 28, maybe 29. Young enough to think a middle-aged lawyer in a Porsche was exciting. Old enough to know better. Your employment was terminated for cause, I said. Falsifying timesheets is grounds for immediate dismissal. I'm not sure what you expected coming here. I know what I did was wrong. The timesheet thing, that was Orlando's idea. He said it was normal, that everyone did it. Everyone doesn't embezzle from their firm, Bryn. That's actually pretty specific to Orlando. I picked up my pen, went back to my contract review. If there's nothing else, please. Her voice cracked. I moved here from Valdosta 2 years ago. I don't have family in Atlanta. I got evicted from my apartment because it was in the firm's name, and I can't afford rent anywhere else. I've been sleeping in my car. I looked up. She was crying now, mascara-free tears streaming down her face. Part of me, the part that had watched this woman flirt with my husband at office parties for 2 years, felt nothing. But another part, the part that remembered being a 26-year-old first-year associate terrified of making rent, felt something uncomfortably close to sympathy. Bryn, I can't give you your job back. Even if I wanted to, which I don't, it would look like I'm condoning what happened. But I can give you a referral to a legal staffing agency downtown. They place paralegals. You're qualified. You just need someone to vouch for your skills. She looked up, surprised. You'd do that? I'd do that for the version of you who was a competent paralegal before she decided to sleep with a married partner. I wrote down a name and number on my notepad, tore it off, handed it to her. Tell them Celeste Mercer referred you. Don't mention Caldwell and Associates. And Bryn, next time a married man tells you everyone's committing fraud, get a second opinion. She took the paper, nodded, and left without saying anything else. After she was gone, Thea, who'd apparently been lurking in the hallway, poked her head in. Did you just help Orlando's mistress? I helped a 28-year-old woman who made catastrophically bad decisions and is now homeless. There's a difference. You're either a saint or a sadist. I haven't decided which. Can't I be both? Tuesday brought more entertainment. Orlando's lawyer, not anyone from our firm obviously, sent over a counter-proposal to my divorce terms. He wanted 50% of everything, including my retirement accounts, and he wanted to claim the house was marital property despite it being in my name from an inheritance. I read the proposal twice, then called Petra. He's delusional, she said after I read her the highlights. The house was your grandmother's. It's separate property. He has no claim to it. I know that. You know that. Apparently Orlando's attorney doesn't know that, which tells me he hired someone cheap. Or desperate. Nobody good is going to represent him after what happened. Should I counter-offer, or just let him drown? Counter with your original terms and a deadline. 48 hours to accept, or you start filing complaints with the bar. I spent Tuesday afternoon drafting the response with Petra, then sent it off with a certified mail requirement. Orlando would have to sign for it, which meant he'd have physical proof that his time was running out. Wednesday, Griffin and I had lunch with a potential client, a healthcare startup looking to acquire 3 urgent care clinics in the metro area. The meeting went well. Great, actually. The CEO, a woman named Simone, was impressed with our acquisition strategy and our timeline projections. As we were leaving the restaurant, she pulled me aside. I have to ask, are you the Celeste Mercer whose husband just imploded his own law firm? My stomach dropped. Word travels fast. I'm in 3 different professional women's groups on Facebook. It's been the only topic of conversation for 4 days. She smiled. For what it's worth, I think you're a genius. The way you handled that whole situation, that's exactly the kind of strategic thinking I want representing my company. We signed the retainer agreement Thursday morning. $200,000 in projected fees over the next 6 months. Griffin walked into my office after the client left, grinning. We just landed the biggest deal this firm's seen in 2 years. We're going to land 10 more by Christmas, I said. Get used to winning. Thursday afternoon, the twins came home for the weekend again. They'd decided to make it a regular thing until the divorce was finalized, which I appreciated even though I didn't want them to feel like they had to choose sides. Except they'd already chosen sides, which became clear when Maren showed me her phone over dinner. Dad's been texting us, she said. A lot. I looked at the messages. 12 texts from Orlando in 3 days, all variations on the same theme. Your mother manipulated everyone. Your mother destroyed my career. Your mother is vindictive and cruel. What did you say back? I asked. I blocked him, Brooks said, after he called you a gold digger, because apparently the woman who built his entire firm is a gold digger. We told him we'd talk to him again when he stops acting like a child, Maren added, which, based on this trajectory, might be never. I should have told them not to cut off their father. I should have encouraged them to maintain a relationship with him despite everything. But honestly, I was tired of being the bigger person. I appreciate you too, I said instead. More than you know. Friday morning, Orlando's 48-hour deadline expired. He hadn't signed the divorce agreement. He hadn't even responded. So I called Petra and told her to file everything. The bar complaints, the civil suit for return of embezzled funds, the divorce petition with my original terms as the only offer on the table. You're sure? Petra asked. Once we file with the bar, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. He had his chance to do this quietly. He chose chaos. Then let's give him chaos. The complaints were filed by noon. By 3 p.m., my phone was ringing. Orlando, of course. I answered on the 4th ring. Yes? You filed bar complaints against me? Celeste, they're going to suspend my license. You embezzled from your own firm, Orlando. What did you think was going to happen? They were going to give you a stern talking to and send you on your way? I made a mistake. I was going to pay it back. Over what timeline? Because you've had 2 years to pay it back, and instead you bought Bryn a car. He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Smaller. What do you want from me? I want you to sign the divorce agreement. I want you to accept responsibility for what you did. And I want you to stop telling our children that I'm the villain in this story. They won't even talk to me. That's not my problem, Orlando. That's a consequence of your choices. Sign the papers. Take accountability. Maybe eventually they'll forgive you. Will you? The question caught me off guard. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Would I ever forgive Orlando for the affair, the lies, the embezzlement, the public humiliation? I don't know, I said honestly. But I know I'll never forget. Sign the papers, Orlando. I hung up before he could respond. Saturday morning, the signed divorce agreement arrived via courier. Orlando had agreed to everything, every term, every clause, every condition. He'd even included a handwritten note. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but it's true. I read the note once, then put it in my desk drawer. Maybe someday I'd need to remember that he'd apologized. Today wasn't that day. Griffin stopped by the house Saturday afternoon with champagne and Chinese takeout. Hugh told me the divorce papers came through. Figured you'd want to celebrate. You just wanted an excuse to see the house, I said. But I let him in. We ate lo mein on the back porch while he admired the view of the garden. This is nice. Really nice. No wonder you fought for it. My grandmother left me this house. Orlando thought he could claim it because we'd been married long enough. He was wrong about a lot of things, including underestimating you. I looked at Griffin. He was younger than me by almost 10 years, successful in his own right, ambitious enough to keep up with my plans for the firm. And he was looking at me like I was something worth paying attention to. Are you flirting with me? I asked. Would that be inappropriate? Probably. You're my business partner. True. He took a sip of champagne. But I'm also someone who thinks you're remarkable, and I figured now that the divorce is final, it might be okay to mention that. I considered him, considered the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was something interesting waiting on the other side of this mess. Ask me again in 6 months, I said, after we've hit our revenue targets. Deal, he said, and smiled. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my office, the corner office, the one that used to be Orlando's, reviewing quarterly reports when Griffin knocks on my door with 2 glasses of champagne. We did it, he says, setting 1 glass on my desk. Revenue's up 147%. We just became the 3rd highest grossing mid-market firm in Atlanta. I look at the numbers he's showing me. He's right. We didn't just hit our targets, we demolished them. Guess I should have fired Orlando years ago, I say, and Griffin laughs. The firm, officially rebranded as Mercer Tate and Associates 3 months ago, is unrecognizable from what it was. We've brought in 12 new clients, hired 4 associates, and just opened a satellite office in Buckhead. The same Buckhead neighborhood where Bryn used to live in that firm-funded apartment, actually. The irony isn't lost on me. Hugh stops by as I'm packing up for the day. Celeste, got a minute? Always. What's up? I wanted to thank you, he says, and he looks genuinely emotional. When all that went down with Orlando, I thought the firm was finished. I thought we'd lose clients, lose reputation, lose everything. Instead, we're thriving. That's because of you. It's because of all of us, I say, but I appreciate the sentiment. No, it's because you had the guts to do what needed to be done. Orlando was dragging us down for years, and none of us wanted to admit it. He pauses. For what it's worth, I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. After he leaves, I sit there for a moment thinking about Orlando. I haven't seen him since that Saturday 6 months ago when he signed the divorce papers. I heard through Lawson that he's working at a small personal injury firm in Marietta now, taking whatever cases he can get while he waits to see if the bar is going to suspend his license. The hearing's next month. Bryn, according to LinkedIn, is working as a paralegal at a workers' comp firm in Duluth. She never used the referral I gave her. Can't say I'm surprised. The twins are doing well. Marin made Dean's List last semester and decided to add a minor in women's studies, which she says is directly inspired by watching you destroy Dad's entire career. Brooks is talking about law school, which terrifies and thrills me in equal measure. They've started speaking to Orlando again. Supervised visits, mostly lunches where he apologizes a lot and they nod politely. I'm glad. They need a relationship with their father, even if it looks different now. My phone buzzes. Text from Thea. Wine night at my place? I have gossip about Judith. I smile. My ex-mother-in-law's HOA drama has become legendary. After her Facebook post imploded spectacularly, she tried to run for HOA president and lost by a landslide. Apparently, accusing your daughter-in-law of being a vindictive gold digger while your son's embezzlement case is public record isn't a winning campaign strategy. I text back, be there at 7, bringing the good stuff. As I'm leaving the office, I run into Griffin in the parking garage. He's leaning against his car, clearly waiting for me. So, he says, it's been 6 months. I'd forgotten about that conversation. The one where I told him to ask me again in 6 months after we hit our revenue targets. It has been 6 months. I agree. And we hit our targets. We exceeded them, actually. So? He takes a step closer. Dinner? Somewhere that's not a business meeting? Somewhere where we can talk about things that aren't client acquisition strategies? I think about it. Really think about it. Griffin's smart, ambitious, age-appropriate, and he's never once underestimated me. He's also been nothing but professional for 6 months, while clearly wanting to be something else. You know what? I say. Yes, dinner sounds good. His smile is worth every second of those 6 months of waiting. That night, after dinner with Griffin, which was surprisingly easy and comfortable and made me remember that I'm 42, not dead, I come home to my house that I fought for, that my grandmother left me, that represents everything I built without Orlando's help. I pour myself a glass of wine and sit on the back porch looking at the garden. My phone has 17 unread messages, 3 contract drafts that need review, and a reminder that I'm speaking at the Georgia Bar Convention next month about corporate acquisitions. This is my life now. Successful, busy, complicated, mine. Someone once told me that the best revenge is living well. I used to think that was bullshit. One of those inspirational poster platitudes that sounds good but means nothing. Turns out it's completely true. I'm not going to lie and say I don't think about Orlando sometimes. Wonder if he regrets it. Wonder if he realizes what he lost. Wonder if Bryn was worth $340,000 and a ruined career. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. Because here's what I learned from the whole catastrophic mess. I don't need to be married to be successful. I don't need to be underestimated to be strategic. And I definitely don't need a man who thinks golf is billable work. What I need is exactly what I have: a thriving firm, incredible kids, loyal friends, and the satisfaction of knowing that when someone tried to destroy me, I turned around and built an empire from the wreckage. The twins have started calling what happened the Capitol Grill coup, like it's some kind of historical event. Maybe it is. Maybe the night my husband announced his affair in front of 75 people was the night I stopped being Orlando Caldwell's wife and started being Celeste Mercer, the lawyer who took over Atlanta's corporate acquisition market and made it look easy. My phone buzzes one more time. Text from Marin. Mom, Brooks and I are coming home this weekend. Can we bring friends? They want to meet the Savage Queen. I laugh and text back. The Savage Queen has leftover lasagna and a story you can't put on TikTok. Because that's the other thing I learned. You can survive your marriage ending in spectacular public fashion. You can survive betrayal and embezzlement and becoming the subject of suburban gossip. You can survive all of it and come out the other side stronger, sharper, and significantly wealthier. Sometimes karma needs a little help. Sometimes justice requires a forensic audit and a majority stake in your husband's law firm. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living well while sitting in your ex-husband's office, running his firm better than he ever did, and watching your quarterly profits increase by 147%. Not that I'm keeping score or anything. Okay, I'm totally keeping score. And I'm winning.